Hi, it's Erin. Let's get set up for January 2024. I've actually had this bullet journal theme in mind since September, but I've been saving it for January because I knew I wanted to do it in this beautiful journal that has this watercolor paper. I picked up these frame scrapbooking papers the last time I had a big haul from JOURNALSAY. I got 3 different packs, they're all a little bit different, and I'm using those as the basis of my theme. I'm going to be painting little artworks directly onto the pages of my journal and then framing them with these little cardboard frames. I want flipping through the pages of my January theme to feel a little bit like you're walking through a beautiful art gallery. We're currently on the January cover spread. I'm just working out which frames will go where, and I'm using a pencil to draw around the inside, the opening, the aperture of each of these frames, so I know where my artworks are going to sit. And I'm putting the frames off to the side in a very specific order so I can find them again when I need to stick them back down over the top of the individual pictures. I also took a photo of this on my phone, but I didn't actually end up referring back to that. I took all of my floral inspiration from Instagram for this theme. I looked for lots of floral close-ups, floral macro photos, floral arrangements, that kind of thing on Instagram. I saved a whole bunch of them to their own specific folder, and I'm using those for inspiration. I'm not directly copying many of them, I'm just using them for the shapes of the flowers, the colors, the way the light and shadow play together. And then I'm just sketching out a basic idea of how I want to approach it into each of these little vignettes, and then jumping in with my gouache paint and adding down the colors from darkest through to lightest. I do want to really emphasize here that I am very new to gouache. I'm not trying to use this video as any kind of tutorial, I'm just showing you what I did in my own journal because I honestly am still learning and I have a lot more to learn. Some of my tiny artworks are going to turn out a lot better than others. I'm going to be working on my painting all year. That's part of the reason I picked this watercolor page notebook, and we will talk some more about that a little bit later on when I tell you how I actually got to a point where I felt like I could do this kind of painting in my journal. But for now, please just don't come for me if you are an experienced gouache user and I'm doing things wrong, or if you think that they don't look as good as they could, because I am still very much a beginner here. And we've all got to start somewhere, right? So this is me encouraging you to try the thing, because what's the worst that could happen? With that in mind, I'm also speeding up quite a bit of the painting process and the sketching process for this video, just because I don't know that there is a great deal that you could learn from watching me do it anyway. And there are going to be a lot of tiny paintings in this video, so if I put them all in at normal speed, it would be a really, really long video. So please enjoy some actually quite satisfying time-lapse painting. Originally, I thought I would do all of my backgrounds and all of my flower colors in kind of a similar palette across the page so that everything looked very cohesive. I actually didn't end up continuing that all the way through. I found that I really liked the variation of having different colors in the different paintings next to each other. It gave more of that gallery kind of feeling, because if you have 2 paintings by 2 different artists next to each other in a gallery, the likelihood that they've used the exact same colors is quite low. So I ended up not really worrying about it and just mixing colors as I went, which I think is actually more true to the Impressionist system anyway, of, you know, not having the exact same color consistently all the way through a painting. I've actually ended up very, very happy with a few of these paintings on this page and significantly less happy with a few of them, but I think the overall effect is pretty good. I'm using a glue pen for the more ornate frames to make sure that they stick really well to the page, and I'm using a combination of that same glue pen and a glue tape for the larger ones so that they'll anchor really well. I have had my last couple of journals get very, very thick with use, so I'm hoping that as the pages become curvier, as the book becomes more full, these will still stick really well. That's my goal. Anyway, we'll have to see how we go. I'm loving this spread so much already. I think the frames really make it. I remember hearing Neil from Art Attack say once that the way to make an artwork look really amazing is to put it in a great frame, and I think he might have been onto something there. Since there is already so much going on this spread, I wanted to keep the lettering really simple. I'm just using a black Tombow Fudenosuke brush pen. This one's actually the hard tip, which I find a lot more difficult to use than the soft tip, but I couldn't find my soft tip, so we had to go with this one. Before we continue with the journal, I want to give a big shout out to Skillshare, the sponsor of this video. Skillshare is the largest online learning destination for creatives, with thousands of classes across every creative field you can dream of, taught by industry leaders. No matter what your skill level, you can start learning right now at your own pace and in a way that fits your lifestyle. It's ideal for anyone looking to pick up a new hobby or dive back into an old one, for sharpening and honing your existing skill set, for entrepreneurs building a creative business or side hustle, or for creative professionals keen on leveling up their marketing, social presence, productivity, or work-life balance. There really is something for everyone on Skillshare. If you're looking for a new hobby for 2024, I recommend checking out the lifestyle section of Skillshare. There you'll find classes on gardening, baking, craft, sewing, languages. It's such an incredible resource, especially if you don't really know where to start. This is my Skillshare homepage. You can probably tell I've been taking a lot of painting classes lately. My New Year's resolution is to improve my gouache and watercolor skills, and Skillshare is actually the reason I'm able to tackle the theme for this very January bullet journal setup you're watching today. I had the idea in mind for a somewhat impressionist style floral still life artwork theme, but I didn't have any idea how to approach it. Skillshare had exactly the class I needed. It's called Impressionism with Gouache, taught by Xenia Anis. Xenia covers a brief history of Impressionism, a brief introductory to gouache, helps you recreate two famous Impressionist artworks to get a feel for how those artists used color and brushwork, and then demonstrates how to use those principles in your own work, all in 1 hour and 7 minutes. The idea of recreating something by a beloved artist to better understand how they worked would never have occurred to me, and it seemed a little bit daunting at first, but having that practice time before I jumped into the tiny paintings in my journal really helped me feel more confident about not just creating the little floral artworks, but also filming myself doing this and putting it on the internet for anyone to see. If you're planning to start learning something new for 2024, grow a new income stream, or even upskill and switch careers, Skillshare is your perfect jumping off point. The first 500 people to use my link will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. Huge thanks to Skillshare for partnering with me and helping me tackle my New Year's resolution. I can't wait to see how my paintings look by this time next year. Now, I thought my January cover spread was done at this point. Actually, after I finish the whole theme, I'm going to decide to come back and add something all the way through this journal theme to really tie things together and fill a little bit of negative space that I left, but we're going to do that right at the end so that things make sense, otherwise the flow of the video will be completely ruined. So for now, let's move on to the calendar spread, which I always feel is a really necessary part of a bullet journal layout for me. Even though I have all of this information in my Google Calendar as well, writing it out by hand helps it stick to my brain, and then I don't really need to go back and check my Google Calendar as often as I would if I hadn't written out this calendar spread. Even if I don't look back at the calendar spread much throughout the month, I feel like I need it. I've made the boxes of the calendar spread quite small. They are only 3 spaces by 3 spaces. I do think that a smaller calendar looks very elegant and classy and classic on the page, whereas a bigger calendar looks a little bit more cutesy and adorable, which sometimes I want, but for this theme I did not. I'm just doing 2 tiny paintings for this one. I'm doing one in the top right corner and one in the bottom left corner. I think it does look kinda empty with just the 2 of them. I could have done more paintings, maybe 4. I will actually come back, as I mentioned, and fix it so it looks a little bit more cohesive at the end of the video. So if you want to see what it all actually looks like when it's done, stay tuned. I love negative space, and I do sometimes deliberately make sure that I leave a lot of negative space, but it was just a bit too much for this one. The balance was off, and it's okay, we're gonna fix it later. To everyone else who also starts their weeks on a Monday, how good is the fact that January 2024 starts on a Monday? It is so satisfying. I love it so much. That's as much of the calendar spread as we're going to work on for now, so we're turning the page. This one is another calendar spread, but with bigger boxes. We're doing 4x4 this time. This one's going to be my content planner spread, and this is not where it usually falls in the layout, but I'm doing things differently again, similar to how I did for December 2023. I actually would have loved to use the same layout for my content planner that I used for December, which was not a calendar grid like this one, but I couldn't work out how to make it work in a way that I could still have lots of negative space on the page, which was what I was going for at the time. So instead, I've done a calendar. I'm going back to sort of my old system here. I think it's fine for a month. It's totally okay. I haven't actually got to test out that December system yet, so I'll know for sure after December finishes if it's the one that I prefer. I have left-oriented this calendar a lot more than I usually would. I typically try to do the first 4 days of the week on the left page and the next 3 on the right. For this one, I've actually put 5 days on the left page and only 2 on the right because I wanted to have extra space to the right here for some little tiny artworks, as you do, of course. And you know what? I actually regret it a little. I wish I'd balanced it out with maybe one more artwork on the left side, but I didn't. This one is actually going to end up aesthetically my least favorite spread of the entire theme, but that's okay. Sometimes you just make mistakes and you learn from them, and that's totally fine. In case you're wondering, Erin, why the heck do you need a space to plan out content? Partially it's because obviously I have this YouTube channel and I have some sponsorship obligations, so it's good for me to know when I need things to be done by, which is very helpful. Also, Instagram is a beast that requires constant feeding in order to see growth on the platform, so this is where I plan out what I'm going to be posting to Instagram. I write it down as I schedule it. I have a whole video about how I use my content planner, so if you'd like to see that, there is a link in the description and also in the top right corner of the screen right now. The content planner will do for now. We're going to turn the page and move on to my spending log. This one I know I need a lot of page real estate for, so I'm actually not going to be decorating this page with any frames just because there isn't any room for it. And would you believe it, I'm actually varying my spending tracker a little bit this time around. I actually came up with this layout for my giveaway journal, and I was setting it up for my giveaway journal winner thinking, wow, this is actually better than the way I do it. I need to try this out for myself. If you haven't caught my 2024 new journal plan with me video, which covers the pages before these ones in this journal, you can watch it at the link up the top, or you can check it out in the description below as well. As part of those pages, I always have a cash flow tracker that I analyze all of my money coming in and all of my money going out across the course of a year. And within those I have categories for my spending, so this way when I finish up my spending log for the month, I can add everything up by category and have a place on this page for me to write those values so that I can refer to them as I transfer them back into that first part of the book. This page on the right here, I actually didn't know what to do with. I couldn't think of anything that I definitely wanted to use the page for. So for now, I'm just adding some really simple decoration, one frame with one little painting in the middle. I wanted to have a painting represented on this spread somewhere, obviously, because I didn't have one on the facing page, so I put it smack in the middle of the page so that it's quite featured and important. But there are no titles on this page because I don't know yet how I plan to use it. I will work that out as the month hits if there's something that I need some extra space for. Maybe it's a brain dump musings kind of a page. Maybe it's overflow for my spending log if I didn't have enough room because I sacrificed some of my table there. Or maybe it will just end up being a quote page if I can't think of another reason to use it. I will maybe just put a quote on it later on. In any case, we have moved on to the weeklies, and this is going to be another one of those Dutch door weekly systems where I have a dashboard system going on. So the smaller pages, the center parts of the pages are where my weekly tasks and events will go in a kind of horizontal system so that they will all fit in the space. And on the extra space on the left and right sides, I'm going to have my habit trackers and my mood trackers. I really live in my weeklies. They are always open on my desk. I do all of my planning in my weeklies. And I quite often forget to flip back to a habit tracker page or a mood tracker page or whatever kind of tracker. So I thought that by incorporating them into my actual weekly spreads that I will be more inclined to fill them out as the month goes. But of course I wanted to have some paintings as well. So I'm doing one in the center of the left outside column and another in the center of the right outside column, which meant I needed to get a little bit creative with the way I fit everything else around. I've had to forsake the day of the week for the habit trackers, so I'm just doing like 10 across. It's going to be numbers 1 through 10 on the first line, 11 to 20, 21 through to 30, and then a tiny little box at the bottom for the 31st. And this is how I'm going to do my habit trackers. It's probably not ideal, it's not my favorite way, but it was a way that I could fit them on the page, so I've got space to track 4 habits here. I usually really find I need an initial for each day of the week, but because the weeklies are right next to these, I can very clearly glance and see like the 3rd is a Wednesday, for instance, so I think it should be okay. We'll have to see how we go. Also, if you have very sharp eyes, you might notice that I have ruled the boxes for the bottom habit tracker too far across. I didn't notice until I wrote 11 in a column that's not supposed to be there. But I actually have a solution for this. I just picked this up when I was in Sydney last week, which is incredible timing because this has proven to be so helpful for this setup. This is a cream correction tape. Isn't that revolutionary? So the pages of this journal are not a bright white. Most correction tapes are a bright white, so they look great on like a notebook therapy or an Archer and Olive page, but this Mellow Days journal has cream pages. And now I have a cream correction tape that matches my cream pages so that when I need to get rid of mistakes, it doesn't even look like there was anything there. Granted, it also gets rid of the dots on the page, but it's a sacrifice I'm willing to make. Also, I didn't have a huge amount of space for paintings here, so I've had to go with these more square frames. I'm totally okay with that. They fit really nicely in the gap on each side here. For all of the other paintings I've done for this setup, I've used a reference photo, but for these ones, at this point I've done quite a few of them, so I'm actually just winging it, and I think they came out kind of fine. So I feel like that's a good sign, and it is something that I've noticed in the past. You get more used to your theme as you set it up all the way through, and you become more confident as you get through to the later pages, and it makes sense that that's the way it would go. Of course, we need to define where these weekly day spaces are actually going to go on the smaller parts of the page here, so I'm just drawing those out as well. I'm using an 05 Pigma Micron for all of my fine liner needs in this setup. I won't be setting up anything past the first week of January for this one because we do usually set up our weeklies together on live stream, and I really look forward to that. I'm not too sure how we're going to do it this time because obviously these weeklies are not going to be that exciting. It would just be more of this, but it is also a chance for us to hang out, so let me have a think about it. I do still plan to live stream in January, but I'm not entirely sure what that content will be at this stage. Something else I'm not entirely sure about at this stage too is this mood tracker that I'm currently adding underneath the little painting on the right flap here. This is another one of those situations where I've just made a grid to fit the space, so this grid has 6 days across the top, and each one of those rows is 6 days, and then there's one extra one down the bottom. Ready for a cat visit? Here's the Mitsu. He loves to get amongst it. At the moment, I'm actually just thinking of doing some kind of a cross-hatching system for that mood tracker with a little key below it. I don't want to get my paints out to color in a mood tracker, and I don't want to introduce new colors that aren't anywhere else in the theme. So I think that's the best way to do it. And I used the space above the painting on that right flap for a goals section because I didn't have that worked in anywhere else in the setup. And I do like the idea also of being able to see my goals at any point throughout the month within my weeklies. So good system. It was actually while filming my flip through for this video that I realized I wasn't happy with where we were at. So I've jumped back in with some washi tape. This particular one came in a pack of 3 from Muji, and I picked it up while I was in Sydney, so I'm not sure how easy it will be for me to link that to some of our international friends. I'll find you an alternative that I can link you to instead if there is one available. It's this gorgeous deep burgundy red, which is not a color I would usually reach for, but I think it works really well with some of the colors in the florals throughout the theme. I did use quite a bit of red and purple and that kind of thing, so I'm using it to fill in some gaps. Just a little bit, kind of above and below the calendar, for instance, on this spread I think makes a huge difference. It's still very simple, but it's also very rich and regal and saturated, and I just think it gives that little bit of a pop that the pages were missing. I didn't mind the page where it was here, but for this one I've decided to add a little bit more artwork to it, so I'm jumping back in with some more frames, circling out where the art's going to go for these ones, and then I'm going to come back and paint those once I've worked out where all of the washi tape needs to go. This content planner spread, was a little bit of a nightmare. I tried to use the washi tape to balance out the visual weight of the paintings on the right side, but because they were kind of close to the edge, I couldn't put the washi tape where I maybe would have liked to put it without kind of trying to peel up the frames and everything and have it run behind them. So I ended up using the washi tape to make a frame all the way around the outside of the page, which I didn't think looked bad, but then it made the placement of my content planner header look wrong because obviously when I lettered that on the page, I hadn't factored in a red washi tape frame because I didn't know yet that that was what I was going to end up doing. So this one required a little bit of creative problem solving. At first I thought I would just live with it, so I carried on and did some more washi tape in some more places, just a bit at the top and bottom of this spare page, and we're going to line the edges of those little weekly Dutch doors with it for the weeklies, but I will go back to that content planner page and fix it in the best way that I could work out. While I'm thinking about that content planner situation, let's go ahead and add some extra little artworks to the calendar page first. Now, I don't know about you, but I think this looks a lot better than where it started before we came back in with the washi tape and the extra paintings, so pretty stoked with how this one came together. Now let's flip back to this content planner page and do something about it. So I'm actually using the offcuts from the Dutch doors to add a new content planner heading, and I'm going to use that to somewhat cover the old one. I want it to be fully on the left page. I don't want it to cross the center of the binding anymore. Thankfully, I have that cream correction tape that is going to save my butt here. I got it from Dimmix in Sydney, and we do have a Dimmix in Brisbane. I'll have to check and see if they also sell this cream correction tape because I only bought one. I wanted to test it out, and now I'm thinking maybe I should have got two because I feel like I'm going to use it a lot in this journal over the next 6 months. The paper in this journal is 160 GSM, so that offcut is going to cover the content planner heading pretty well, but the parts that it won't cover, I'm just going to use the cream correction tape to sort those bits out before I stick this down. Look, it's still not my favorite page, but if you don't look too closely, it doesn't look terrible, so I'm happy to live with it. Here is the final flip through for January 2024. I can't believe I just said that. If painting in a journal is a little bit too extra for you and you prefer to stick to stickers and washi tape, do keep an eye out. I have a different Plan With Me video coming for you, the one I did for my giveaway journal, which is all stickers and washi tape and pens. It is much more simple and straightforward than this one. You can also check out my 2023 January Plan With Me video on the right here at the top in case you'd like a little bit of extra inspiration, and underneath that you'll find the initial pages that I set up for this bullet journal for the beginning of a new year for 2024. Thanks for planning with me. See you again soon.